come on up. You have traveled far and wide and reached new heights to simply relax with us. Just be sure not to break any vases that may be worth 8 million yen on your way up here. Up on the lookout. Up on the Lookout is a podcast related to Dragon Ball with more potential to be relaxed and not necessarily about being a hard-hitting interview-style show that wants to know information all of the time. If you've been enjoying our interviews, then do leave us a rating and review on your respective podcasting platforms of choice, and we will endeavour to improve even more. Joining myself, MasakoX, is my trusty associate Haverock.
Hello, I am the least famous part of this podcast.
Oh, tis for sure, silly. As well as our guest for today. She is essentially one of the major contributors to most of the favourite anime in your selections on whatever streaming software you use. And I'm not just talking about the voice acting. A long-serving ADR director at Funimation, she can also be waxing lyrical on the stage to the words of English literature. It can only be Caitlin Glass. Hey, Caitlin!
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Don't mind the lookout being a little bit breezy up here. Mind you, it's actually been really hot lately. I mean, I think it's 27 degrees here, which is, in your money, up in the low 80s right now? I have to do all these calculations. I to so many people in America that I just have to make sure that I go Fahrenheit, Celsius, even though I didn't learn Fahrenheit in school. Yeah, it's...
Bless you for doing it, because I think that is when, no matter how intelligent you may be or how many degrees you have, if you don't know the metric calculations and stuff, suddenly you're just a big idiot. Yesterday I had to look up some centimeter to inches conversion, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a degree. What is this?
Well, the thing is, if you don't use that information, then it just sort of just goes out there, because it's just either filled with stuff you got to do for the day, some things you just find on the internet, and just all those life hack things you really need to try. For example, I basically have just been obsessed with this 3-ingredient cookies and cream fudge recipe, and I'm just why am I obsessed about this thing? But then I tried it, and it's the chocolate really matters. Just condensed milk, white chocolate, and Oreo. Boom, you're done.
Your Brits and your magical pastries.
Well, it's not pastries. It's just literally fudge. 3 ingredients. Boom, done. You don't even actually need to put anything in the oven, which is even better. Yeah, even said that I am actually the one who does most of the cooking. Philly, my now wife, actually, she does a mean selection of slow cooker recipes, which is always very good to have. Let's just get things rolling on to the main topics and stuff. So with that, let's get started. So, Caitlin, it's been years since we actually got to see each other in person, and I still remember the first time we actually properly hung out, because I know that we passed each other sometimes at YomaCon a few times, because you were a regular guest there, as were we back in the early 2010s. We went to a London convention, and I think you really didn't have anyone with you, and we just thought, well, why don't you come and hang out with us and our group and stuff? A chance to have a bite to eat at a certain chicken place, which has become very well remembered. Yeah, so getting some Nando's.
Ah. The best.
We all still remember it to this day. It was all a really nice evening of just let's just sit back and just have chats and stuff. Not like the old thing of do the voice.
Thank God.
We're all people, and we're just done a busy day ourselves, and we're just can we just get something to eat, please? Something preferably chicken related, or just something just so that means we can just quietly just eat.
It was great.
It's just a shame that there's not more of that kind of stuff. I can imagine Nando's going down really well in Texas.
We like chicken here. There is a Nando's in DC. I remember I was at Katsucon a couple years ago, and you can just walk right over to it. And that was fantastic. It was so nice to get to go. It had such nostalgia for me. My husband doesn't really care for it. I don't know why, but I think the reason I like it so much is because I have good memories of the place. Eating there with you guys that one year. And then I think just a year later, I went back to England for another convention, and I brought a voice actress friend with me, Tia Ballard, and I'm we have to go to this chicken restaurant. And so of course we did. Great memories then too. And just anytime I see any of you crew, we can't not talk about Nando's.
Although having said that, whenever I've been in Texas, like my friend Scott, he's always just like, let's go out to lunch sometime. Like we always go into like Fast and Furious and I Declare. I Declare that's always very good. Like their waffles there, it's like, oh my God, that's absolutely heavenly for breakfast. Seriously.
Fast and Furious is in my neighborhood up in Greenville.
And literally, it was pretty Fast and Furious and stuff. What definitely has been Fast and Furious as well has been the transition in the voice acting world to something really, really bizarre, yet also something really close to home for anybody out there who is dabbling in amateur voice acting. The idea of what it's been like to make these simul dubs and stuff under lockdown. And we were dabbling about this with Damon in the previous episode, and it was a very interesting transition to move from the studio to your own home office, and it obviously depends on what software and equipment that you have. But seeing that you, Caitlin, as an ADR director, especially with recent titles as such as the reimagining of Fruits Basket, how's it been to really kind of like get back to some sort of normality, really, in terms of like shifting the production from basically you being the director?
It's been an experience. I don't want to speak negatively because I'm so grateful to have a job right now and to still be working and to be able to give work to actors is fantastic. So I'm really proud of Funimation for doing whatever they could to get actors working, actors who may not have had the equipment themselves. But, we need our shows to still happen and they still need to make money to pay the rent. So what can we do? How can we mutually work together to make that a reality? But it is very difficult under the current setups that we're using as a director to stay focused because I'm all alone. Personally, I am a collaborative worker, so I like being able to have my engineer right next to me, and when the mic is off and the actor can't hear me, I can discuss things with the engineer. And in this case, we're all three of us in different places. I'm at my home, engineers at their home, actors at their home, and there's a lot more responsibility placed on the actor to deal with the timing and the engineering of the session, basically. So the engineer is there to assist, and I'm there to listen. But I think with Fruits Basket in particular, it's it's a show where you really need to feel connected to your character and also to the other characters, and not being in a booth and having the same type of what do I want to call it? Not quality control, because everybody's still being a good actor. But, you just can't hear as well as you can when I'm back at the studio. Yeah, it's that, and it's just having more fine-tuned control of every single voice that you interact with, like when you are the performer. It's hard to feel like you're truly in the story because you have so many other things to think about. Normally, what's great about being a voice actor, particularly in dubs, is you just come in and you don't have to have really prepared anything. You show up, you just have to have your head in the game, and then you get to live as your character for the next hour or 2 hours. But under these circumstances, when you are the actor, you are also managing your session and dealing with the software and all of that. And while I know that plenty of voice actors have home studios, and when they're doing their own auditions or even some indie projects, they're already they're doing everything that I just explained. But for dubs and for Funimation, I think what makes them great is the fact that an actor can come in and they only have to focus on their character. So it's been a challenge. I think that we're rising to the occasion, but I know that I am very anxious. I look forward to getting back into the proper booth.
We do fully understand that there is that studio atmosphere, because I remember going into recording stuff for Sound Cadence and just having that connection with like Scott and Amber. They're just on the other side of the booth. Recording for Hells, for example, that was a very, very trippy thing, but it was really important having Scott's direction. Basically, I could see him. So having that connection, and yeah, having a webcam's all very well and good, but like you said, it is a real challenge to just have the actors on that screen, and they're basically having to look at 5 or 6 different like controls and like different applications open and stuff. I think I saw like on one Instagram story, like a picture just like of the screen. I was like, oh, geez, wow, that's a lot of things that could go absolutely wrong at any certain thing. Yeah, but out of all of this, has there been anything that you've learned through this process to either streamline it for once it's safe to come back to the studio, or whether it would be just going back to business as usual?
And I cannot speak for the company. This is just Caitlin speaking for herself and what she'd like. I hope that what we have discovered with the software that we found and the kits that we've sent out to people could allow for perhaps just an easing up of the workload. But mainly, I mean, as far as schedules are concerned, I feel the pressure as a director to go to work as often as possible. Even though I have an assistant, if I need to take a day because I'm sick or I need to go take my dog to the vet or, whatever I might need, I really just want to be there all the time, directing all my own stuff. And I think that with the setups we have now, maybe it could allow for us to one day a week as a director be able to work from home. Engineer can still go to the studio. Actor could still go to the studio, but I need to be here because some guy's coming to fix my toilet, or that to manage the work-life balance better. For me, I commute to work about 45 minutes a day going, and then 45 minutes to an hour coming home. So what's really relaxing about this situation is like I just get up, and I'm still getting up at about the same time every day, but now the morning time is my own. It's not like eat real fast, get dressed, get out the door, sit in traffic. I can get up, I can make breakfast, I can sit, I can play Animal Crossing for a little bit, I can relax with my dogs. Oh, look, it's 10 a.m., time to go to work. So I just hope that for our own sanity, because we work a lot. We direct 2 shows at a time that are simuldubs, and then we often have our previous simuldubs coming back around for home video. So we're going over them again and perfecting them, because often there are changes made to the animation, so we have to adjust. So I think the most I've worked on at one time is about 5 shows at once. That's a lot of things to be swimming around in your head. So I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if just every Wednesday I could do my job from my bed in my pajamas? That's what I hope happens. And I also hope that this scenario opens the door for us to utilize more actors that we previously hadn't been able to use because of their location.
My diary's looking relatively clear, I must say, Caitlin.
Good to know.
I'm teasing, but you're absolutely right there. It's just very important, and a lot of people that I know are friends of ours, they work up in London and they commute in all the time, and it's absolutely intense trying to get in on the underground and stuff like that. But now we basically had instructions from our government to say, ideally, don't use public transport. And people have actually been really sticking to it. But at the same time, having that ability to actually talk to your employer and go like, hey, I don't either feel comfortable coming in right now, but I still want to work, or it's all about having that like trust mechanic with it. And seriously, I've been around Texas and the highways. I've seen all those spaghetti junctions and stuff. It's maddening, and I've been in that traffic, so I absolutely feel you there.
Right, every day. Because I live in Dallas proper, so yeah, I got to drive northwest about 40 minutes. So
It's really good to know that just from a different perspective that things have been able to adapt. Let's then adapt our style of podcasting to go to the main topic, which is mainly focusing on you, Caitlin. Let's head over there. This is coming from somebody who's only recently become a dog person, because it was really talking with Philly that I was just playing with our new bearded collie named Uffa. Yeah, those things you said 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure whether I'll love this dog. Are you going to recant that? And I went, yes, I will. It's just the thing is, I used to live next to 3 German Shepherds, and there was a hole in my fence when I was 8, and they came running for me. So that was enough to scar me for a very long time. But now I can actually see the appeal. And of course, when we are actually hanging out, seeing pictures of your French bulldogs, that they're absolutely adorable.
Thank you.
Would you describe yourself as a devotee or a breed that you really just can gel with?
Our Our oldest dog, Torito, is 10 now. And I think that French Bulldogs are definitely the breed that suits my husband and I. So we'll probably continue to get French Bulldogs our whole life. At the same time, I recognize the problems with the breeding of dogs, and I do sometimes feel guilty. We have a male and a female, and we got the female because we love the male so much, and his temperament is really amazing, and we thought we need another dog just like him, so let's get a female and make that happen. Well, because Frenchies are essentially genetically modified dogs over they can have a lot of problems such that they can't even make puppies without assistance. So, that's another expense. And then they also cannot give birth to said puppies except via cesarean section. And our female ended up having just some problems with her breathing and et cetera. So she's not really a good candidate to have puppies. And then I just don't want to put her through that. And then I feel bad about getting even any more French Bulldogs, knowing what the animals have gone through, just so I can have this adorable thing that looks a certain way and acts a certain way. I don't know when it comes time to get more dogs in our life if we'll get more Frenchies or if we'll go just to a shelter and get a dog. We're definitely dog people.
Yeah, of course. And now I can actually fully understand that now, because the same with Uffa. She is a pedigree bearded collie. And a lot of people really like her because they get really shaggy, and they're often mistaken with old English sheepdogs, like the Dulux dog, essentially, those dogs on the paint can. There's a weird thing with British advertising. We always want to associate stuff with dogs. Like there's the Dulux dog, there's the Andrex puppy, which is basically a brand of toilet paper. It's just these cute little golden retriever puppies. And most of the ads are just them basically rolling out these rolls of toilet paper, causing absolute mischief, but then it's a puppy, so you can't be too mad at it, so you therefore buy the product. I don't know what's up with that. Yeah, so despite anime being a huge part of your repertoire, you also do dabble in theatre acting, most notably Shakespeare, because I have noticed a lot of that on your many feeds. What sparked this fascination? And let me guess, did it have something to do with college?
I've been into Shakespeare since high school, probably. It's required reading in high schools in the States each year. In your English class, you'll focus on a different play. So that's kind of how I came to be fascinated with Shakespeare. My senior year in high school, I had a really amazing English teacher, and I was a bit of I don't want to say a nerd. It's strange to have plenty of friends, but still not really know where you fit in. So I would spend a lot of my lunch hours, my senior year in high school, in my English teacher's classroom talking about Shakespeare. That's the kind of person that I was. But she was great, really just gave me a lot of insight and read this and look up that. And I was learning more things from her in those lunch chats than I was in my classes. And that doesn't mean that the classes were not educational. That just wasn't the focus. We had a lot of things to cover in English class, including the language, not just Shakespeare and his life. So that's kind of what started the fascination with it. And then in college, yes, we did some productions. I was in 12th Night my freshman year of college, and I went, oh yes, more of this, please. But since it was a program that was focusing on us being well-rounded in all facets of performance, it wasn't just let's learn how to do Shakespeare and only Shakespeare, or classical acting only. So I had intended to go to graduate school so that I could focus on Shakespeare and classical acting, but anime found me instead. So I followed that because I was also interested in it. It wasn't just a random, well, I guess I'll do that. No, I was about it, and I recognized that the opportunity doesn't come along every day. Not everyone goes on a tour of Funimation and then leaves with a job. So I thought I should probably stick with this for as long as possible. And now I'm still doing it. I think I'm currently in my 17th year of voice acting and directing and the anime industry.
Coming back to Shakespeare for a moment, what's your favorite play?
I'll always come back to Hamlet. I know it may seem cliche, everybody loves Hamlet. No, I really do love Hamlet. and I love Othello. I love the tragedies a lot. And I'm currently working on a Julius Caesar production. More on that later.
Now, personally, I studied Shakespeare in sixth form college, which is basically like senior year, roughly. And I think the one play that I really resonated with was Much Ado About Nothing. We studied the text, and then we watched the Kenneth Branagh film from 1993.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely great seeing like the likes of Richard Briers and Emma Thompson and Kenneth Branagh just going off on one. But then I think our entire class was basically just ragging on Claudio, basically just being such a big whiny baby.
It's true.
Like so many different times. It's just like, I don't know whether it was the interpretation of the movie itself or anything like that, but it was just really crazy. But that's certainly something that that was probably one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. But also incidentally, have you ever been to Vancouver in Canada?
Yes.
Oh, right. Are you by any means acquainted with the Shakespeare troupe known as Bard on the Beach?
No, that sounds super fun.
Oh, well, basically it's run by one of my mum's like oldest friends, like, their little brother, his name's Christopher. And basically he moved to Vancouver about like 60 years ago, and he set up this troupe of Shakesperean actors. And now they basically, like on the west coast of Vancouver, like near the Pacific, they have this huge tent, and they basically do these semi-outdoor alternative interpretations of Shakespeare plays. And it's just so relaxed and stuff. So if you ever go to Vancouver again, I seriously recommend it, because I went to go and see like a modern take on Taming of the Shrew. It's always really nice to be able to kind of just like go up to town and go and visit the Globe. So that's always really nice.
I was in London, I think summer of 2018, and I had been to the Globe before, but I hadn't actually seen a production because it didn't fit into my schedule. But that summer that I was there, I did get to see The Winter's Tale, which is a strange show to see in the summer. But it was amazing. The most amazing thing. That place is spectacular. And if I could do anything, like if I had to just quit my job tomorrow for some reason and it wasn't, coronavirus everywhere, I would move to London in a heartbeat and just study and do whatever I could to perform on that stage before I die. What an amazing place.
Let's move on to something a little bit more in keeping with Dragon Ball. But you do still have a passion for the erudite and the sophisticated, so no wonder the character of Vados was right for you. Because quite frankly, it actually became sort of like a mini joke on my channel, basically. I think it was just one of these various things during the Tournament of Power, and Vados was being particularly sassy, even more sassy than usual. And we had the hashtag Sassy Vados.
Ah, yay, good.
Vados, though, wasn't actually your first Dragon Ball role. And I am so sorry that you were in this one. You were in Bio Broly? And you were playing a character, it was back in 2005. I don't expect you to remember that entirely.
I remember. It was a quick little thing.
It being relatively quick, that's absolutely fine, because that was not a good movie. It was not a good movie at all. So, no. It's basically, Broly comes back as a clone, but then turns into Blob, which then is killed by water. Vados is far better. But how did you actually find yourself in that role, going into the new series of Dragon Ball Super?
Christopher Sabat just offered it to me. I think he said he'd been looking for some way to get me into the series for a number of years, but didn't want to just give me a throwaway or one-off episodic character, or even one that was just for a little small arc. So he was just kind of biding his time until the right character came along, and then she did. The first thing I did as Vados actually was for one of the video games. Yeah, Xenoverse 2, I think. They knew that Super, the show, was coming, and these characters would need to be cast, and so the first work I did as her was in the game.
I remember that the games were very important in gaining an understanding about what particular characters were doing what, because there was an example of Goku Black in this one. And because in the original interpretation of it, because again, the anime hadn't really come out yet entirely, it was like Goku, he's this happy-go-lucky kind of guy. And then they basically turn him, it's like the whole idea of like Christian Bale Batman, as in, I'm Goku now.
Right.
Just like, so, but obviously these things change. But did being part of a game, finding the voice there, was it a bit less pressure? Because I can imagine with there being loads of lines and not necessarily needing to worry about lip flaps, did it help you in some way find your feet with that character?
The way that it helped was because I was consistently getting to listen to the Japanese performance and then do it. Japanese and then me for, however long the session was, an hour or two. When normally when Vados shows up, she doesn't have a terrible lot to say, and if she does, it's just her and Champa speaking to each other, or it's in a big crowd scene, so every 10 lines I'll have a one-liner. So I guess to your question, I think that it probably did help me come up with the voice, but it was still months later that we actually began recording the show, so I just had to listen back to what we had set in the game.
What was the process of finding that voice? Were you trying to find a kind of similarity to Ian's interpretation of Whis, given the fact that, Vados and Whis are brother and sister?
So Raleigh Pickens, who is the engineer and director for a lot of Super, maybe all of it, he was like, here's Ian, let me play it for you. And I already knew Ian very well from working with him. So I kind of got to hear the things that he was doing with his voice, but I also recognized once I saw Vados' animation that she wasn't quite as ridiculous as him, and that I imagine her being the sister that knows she's superior to this brother of hers. I kept all of those things in mind, and I think maybe Chris Sabat wanted me for this role because of our roles together in Fairy Tale. I don't know this for certain, but he plays Elfman and I play Evergreen, and we interact with one another. And Evergreen is another very haughty, arrogant character. I would not consider Vados to be arrogant, but I think haughty, certainly, definitely at times. So I started there. I started with the voice that I had already established for Evergreen, but gave it a bit more sophistication because I think Evergreen tries too hard, whereas Vados actually is that smart and sophisticated and doesn't really have to prove herself to anyone. That's just how she is. What's great about dubbing is we have this performance by the Japanese and also the animation to inspire what we do. So I just kind of watched the give and take between Vados and Champa and knew what sort of counterbalance I needed to be to Lord Champa's character.
Spot on to what Hav and I basically interpret from Vados. And you're absolutely right, really, because Vados is the slightly older sister to Whis. And there are so many times where Vados is just like, oh, I already knew that ages ago, Whis. You only just learned that, and Whis is just like, oh, come on, there's no need to be so arrogant about it.
Yeah.
Even though angels are meant to be these mysterious, very powerful enigmas within Dragon Ball, which in theory can basically do anything whatever the writers want them to do at any given point, there is that brotherly connection with the sister. That connection between the two of them is actually really human, and it's actually really refreshing.
They always strike me as, as those two twins that one will always say, hey, I'm 2 minutes older than you. And I think that's the Vados Whis dynamic, I always felt it like that.
I would agree. Yeah, Ian was so excited when I was going to go in to record for the first time because he'd been playing Whis for over a year, and he's a huge Dragon Ball fan.
Oh, don't we know it? We know that.
Psych me up for the recording, so I go in for the first time, and I tell Raleigh, well, Ian said this about the character, and I should maybe think about the other characters from this perspective, and blah, 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 and I give him this whole spiel based on what Ian had said, and Raleigh goes, yeah, well, I guess you could do that, or just do whatever you want to do. It's like, okay, that's a very Vados decision, in retrospect. Just do whatever I want to do. I'm sure my decision will be much better than Whis's. Yeah, and another fun aspect to her character that a lot of people don't know about, once the Tournament of Power gets underway, just goofing off with Raleigh, another person I've known for a very long time, I don't know who decided this, if it was his idea or mine, or if I just randomly did it and then we took it and ran with it. But the idea is that Vados, this all-powerful angel, is still extremely turned on by muscles and the power of other competitors, especially any character that we don't know much about anyway. It's one thing if it's like Vegeta or Goku, like who cares? We've been watching them for years. But new people who show up, like everything that Vados says in regards to them has a little bit of, oh, look at him in it. And just, it's all in the subtext. And we had a great time with that.
Of course, because angels live for like eons. Anything new is like something absolutely revolutionary.
Yeah, and she has to hang out with Chubby Champa all the time, who just like eats, and good grief.
She's basically having to be like a walking like health app.
Angels are basically like Amazon Alexas for gods of destruction sometimes.
Amazon Alexas, that's great.
You get that idea because like at the Battle of Gods thing, when Beerus is just going like, oh yeah, by the way, Goku, there's like 12 universes out there. And it's just this throwaway line, and we're left reeling in the movie theaters. And then later on, Whis is just saying, well, by the way, as Lord Beerus actually said, there's actually 12 universes out here, and I'm going to use all these pretty little colored marbles to actually illustrate my point.
Yep.
They do act as exposition machines, but at the same time, there are these moments that actually work because the brother-sister dynamic, Champa and Beerus have that. What was that feeling at that time when, in the Tournament of Power, Champa, Universe 6 were about to be erased, and there was that moment when Vados actually would say goodbye to Champa in a way. Did you have any experiences like that? Did you get referred to that in the booth? Was that anything that you had to deal with?
Well, I remember recording it, and I remember like my last recording session for Dragon Ball. I think I even took a picture of it and posted it on my Instagram because it's pretty momentous to be a part of essentially the biggest franchise in anime in the West. So it was bittersweet. I was so grateful, but then also sad that it was coming to an end so soon. But it's Dragon Ball, so there's never really an end. Fingers crossed there'll just be some more of her.
Oh, don't worry. I think there will be, because Vados is very, very popular within the community. And it was actually for a long time when we saw the visual, the first bit of promotional art for Dragon Ball. I remember some of my friends and we were trying to debate because we were thinking, oh, this Universe 6 other fat cat god has an angel as well. So we were like thinking, okay, so we've got Beerus Whis. There's the adult drink, and kind of name puns. What could it be for what then become Vados? And we were just thinking like tequila, so it could be a teki, kite, and stuff like that. But yeah, that obviously went to Kitera, who was the god of destruction for Universe 4. We then got Vados after Calvados. Have you actually tried Calvados?
I have not.
Oh, well, I did like a video like a couple of years ago about drinks of the gods. And it's basically going through all 12 universes and drinking the alcoholic drinks of every single universe. There's still one to do about drinks of the angels. So, I'll let you know if you can't find an example of a bit of tipple of Calvados.
I must say that this made all my drinking friends in Polish pretty amused.
Stick some Crispin cider in front of me and I'm absolutely fine, or a gin and tonic. Really loving my Roku gin right now. It's absolutely really, really nice. Always a good gin and tonic in the evenings, especially when a video is done very well that day.
I was just laughing. It's such a proper British drink, little gin and tonic.
If there's like an open bar in the green room, I say, hi, can I like get a, gin and tonic, please? Sure. Would you like a Hendrix or Gordon's? And I'm thinking, so do you have any Whitley Neal, by the way? A bit of Roku? Seriously, the amount of gins. Oh, Sipsmith. A blood orange gin. There are so many different flavored gins out there. It's crazy. Just with the amount of there are going to be countless numbers of angels named after all sorts of drinks. It's actually been really good to, get to know your connection to magical characters and stuff like that. But I suppose one last thing we can talk about before we wrap things up for today, you actually got to do something really magical and something that not a lot of people get to actually experience. You got to be a Pokemon.
Oh, I was was like, where's he going?
Ah,
with
yes,
this?
you got to be
What am-
Diancie.
Yes, I did.
Diancie is like one of those really iconic characters, and everyone was thinking it was heralding the days of Gen 7. Like, all the leaks were coming out saying, is this Pokemon going to be the start of Gen 7? No, it was a special Pokemon in for a specific movie. But how did you land that role? Because that's like one of the big things to get into Pokemon, and especially being a Pokemon.
I was just fortunate to have met the director of the show at the time, and I also have known one of the producers who works, I believe he still works for the Pokemon Company, for about as long as I've been in anime. Toshifumi Yoshida. I've known him back. He used to work for, I think, Viz, and he worked on Inuyasha. That's when I first met him, I think, at the very first Youmacon, so 2005. Or was that 2004? I don't even remember. I think 2005. Yeah. Anyway, so through conventions and making connections that way, the main cast of Pokemon had already been set. So I knew that if I ever had a chance of being in Pokemon, it would either be suddenly there's a new show, but then probably I wouldn't be in it because Pokemon is done in New York and I don't live there. And they're just, I don't know, that they don't really use out-of-town talent, which I totally get as a director in Texas. I completely understand how it can mess with your schedule and et cetera. So I'm like, well, maybe there'll be a movie someday, but I didn't really hang my hopes on it. It was just hey, if that happened, that would be cool. And out of the blue, I get a call from Tom and or an email maybe, and he says, hey, we've got this movie coming up, and there's this character I think you'd be great for. I still had to audition, however. It was not a given. It was me. I don't know who I was auditioning against, but he sent me the sides and some instructions, and I gave my best shot. And then he gave me some notes, like, can you make this change and this change? I said, okay. So then I auditioned a second time. I guess it was kind of like a callback. And then I got it. And I was like, wow, amazing. And I went up to New York, and we recorded the movie in maybe 2 sessions. It's like a day and a half or so. And that was that.
When did you actually get to see an example of the image of Diancie? Was it something that you only found out later on, or was it something that you saw immediately upon being offered an audition?
I thought that she was so cute, and I really liked all the pink, and so I was just, summoning up other pink characters in my mind just to give me inspiration for her. And the princess aspect, I was all about that. I'm like, okay, I get it. Princess, okay. So it was the cute, the small. She's also a princess. It was just helping me make some decisions about where to place the voice. She's adorable.
She's the cutest little rock.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to be a Pokemon, who wouldn't want to be like a fairy rock princess? Come on now, who's got diamonds for hair? Like, there's not a better Pokemon.
I would say, with like a rock princess, that's metal as hell, but Diancie's not a steel type.
No, that's true.
Yeah, all that remains to be said is thank you so much, Caitlin, for joining us on the podcast today.
You're so welcome. It's been my pleasure.
Before we head back down to Earth, can we have some examples of where any listeners might be able to find you should they wish to experience more of Caitlin Glass?
So I'm pretty active on Twitter and Instagram, and I do also have a YouTube channel, but there's just very random stuff on there. Certainly enough random things to keep you occupied, but I don't post there on the regular. My handle or screen name for all of those things is Caitlin's Voice, CAITLINS Voice, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I do have a Facebook. I never use it, so don't bother. Every time there's a new episode of Fruits Basket that airs in English, we'll do a watch along on my Instagram live that night, usually Monday nights. So keep an eye on Instagram to find out if an episode is airing or not. And that's where you can find me.
Well, absolutely brilliant. And the fact that you do those watch alongs, that's really great because it's so different from a typical reaction video, because watch alongs are basically like, hey, get this thing up on your screen or whatever and just watch it with me like we're basically on the same couch.
Yeah, we're just hanging out together.
It's much more chummy, which is exactly what we want to do here up on The Lookout. So once again, Caitlin, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, anytime.
And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. If this is something that you've been enjoying and wish to experience more of, you can check out our previous episodes with many interviews as well as reviews relating to Dragon Ball. And we'd also appreciate a rate and review on your respective podcasting platforms. It really does help the show grow. And if you wish to become a caretaker of the Lookout and get your name listed on the podcast, you can go to masako.cc/lookout. But all that remains to be said is thank you once again for listening. And until the next time, stay safe, everybody, and take care. Ta-ra!